So we're going to look at how we can work out the area of a shape. When you were in school back in December, we were looking, in your numeracy lesson, we were looking at perimeter, which is looking at how we measure the outside of, or the distance around the outside of a shape. So when we did that, we were speaking about the units of length, those being millimetres, centimetres, metres and kilometres, where your millimetre, very, very small unit, kilometres is sort of units that are used for long distances, maybe between towns, cities, that sort of thing. So what is area? And again, we have spoken a wee bit about this, but this is just going back over the work that we need to know. So what is area? How do we measure it? And quite simply, area is about the amount of space that is inside a shape. We always measure area in square units. We will mainly use or talk about square centimetres or square metres. So for example, if you had a little square, maybe one of the squares in your jotter that measures a centimetre by a centimetre, the amount of space inside it is said to be 1 square centimetre, and we write that using the cm with a little 2 up at the right hand end of the cm. Other units that we might come across are square millimetres. That would be very, very small areas, for example the end of a pen, that sort of thing. Square metres, if we were measuring or trying to calculate how much carpet we needed for a floor, we would talk about square metres for that. And square kilometres, maybe for the amount of space that a country takes up, or a farmer might even talk about how many square kilometres of fields they have, or land that they have. So it is all about squares, and you can see in these examples that we've previously looked at, we can see on this one that the shape is made up of 7 of these square centimetres, so we would write the area like that, just by simply counting the area. So with this one, counting how many squares are there, we can see that it comes to 16 of these squares inside that particular shape. If your shape's a wee bit more complicated and you've maybe got half squares going on, again you simply add up how much space is in there, how many squares, and that one would total to 5 square centimetres. So those examples that we had done previously all had the squares already there. But what if you didn't have squares there and you were looking at this rectangle here? How could we work out how much space is inside that particular shape? Well, basically, if we did cover it in squares, then we would see that actually the space inside of it is 8 square centimetres. And if you notice anything about the 8, it is simply worked out by multiplying together. You've got 2 rows of squares here by 4 going across there. So if you simply did 2 times 4, got your answer of 8, we would say that the area of that shape is 8 square centimetres. But what I'm wanting you to spot in general is that by knowing the outside edges, so your length and your breadth, all that you would simply have to do to write down your work in is just multiply together those 2 numbers. So this is another place where knowing your times table will be quite important. And here, the squares that we're talking about are all measure a centimetre by a centimetre, so the area is 8 square centimetres. And it's these 3 lines of working here we need you to be writing your working down in that way. So this one here, work out the area of the following rectangles, the one on the left there. What I would expect to see you, there's no squares this time, but I'd expect you to start with this formula that says area equals length times by breadth. It doesn't matter which side you call the length, which one you call the breadth, but you're basically going to be multiplying together, and this is what you'd write down. Area equals, in this case, 5 times 13 You do the calculation, that comes out to be 65. Because the measurements are in centimetres, my answer is in square centimetres. For the second example here, the length and breadth measure 4 metres by 6 metres. Again, if you're working out the area, you'd write down the formula. So area equals length times breadth. You'd put your numbers in, 6 times 4, and you get the answer of 24 square centimetres. So that's basically what we need you to know from this lesson and take away and be able to do this by yourself. You need 3 lines of working when you do this, so just a little recap. Show you working, it would look like this. Area equals length times breadth. Area equals 16 times 15, and therefore area, you do that on the calculator of course, 240. Because it's metres by metres here, your units will be square metres. So sometimes the units are square centimetres, sometimes they are square metres. It depends what the measurements are. Now it's your turn to practice in the exercise sheet.